Second is
Someone's moving online.
No, that's right. Yeah, most in front of it.
Yeah, that's right.
again, make sure you're not covering him.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry. That's my physical problem, sorry.
Good, Vic?
Yep.
Good to go?
You guys good?
Yeah, we're
Cool.
good, thank you.
Look, can I just first of all start off by thanking Friends for the massive effort over the last 24 hours since they've started battling this fire. As your camera operators would have seen, some of the fires got extremely close to residential properties. We know that there are a small number that were destroyed, but if you see how many homes had fire very close to them, you'll see how much of an effort that they've put in over the last 24 hours to protect those homes, and also a local sawmill. It's obviously a very big fire, and we've got Friends and other agencies here if you've got any deep dive questions. But we're obviously going to be watching it very closely over the next 48 hours. Friends have told us that the conditions are pretty good in terms of the weather to make sure that they can tackle it over the next 48 hours. But as I said earlier, the weather could change and things could change as well. So hats off to the effort over the last 24 hours. The next important thing is obviously there is a local civil defence emergency, and I acknowledge the two mayors here, Rachel Rees and Richard Kempthorne, for taking that action to protect their communities. My message to the communities, as it would be from the mayors as well, is just to make sure that people listen to what is going on through either the media or through social media, those messages coming from civil defence. There are obviously evacuations and cordons in place, and there will be more resources arriving later this afternoon to make sure that those cordons are solid, but people just need to have their wits about them while us Friends is fighting this fire so they can keep themselves safe. But happy to answer any questions.
You've been up there. How would you describe the fire? How big is it? How serious is it?
It's large. So the briefing during the briefing that we got at the Emergency Operations Centre was 1,900 hectares. Again, the size is obviously impressive, but if you see how close it got to some residences and obviously a rather large sawmill, again, hats off to Friends for their effort over the last 24 hours for containing it so it didn't get any worse.
Can you talk to the number of evacuations and maybe just elaborate on how close that fire did get to homes?
Well, your footage will show that metres away, and I think that's testament to the work that was put in by Friends. The briefing that we got earlier on Civil Defence told that there were about 170 just north of that evacuations of households. We understand that most of those people have been looked after by friends and family, but then there are a small number who have asked for assistance from an emergency welfare centre in Wakefield. That's good, and we hope to make sure that we keep the community engaged with information that they need so they know what's going on in the next 48 hours while they continue to fight the blaze, so they can keep themselves safe and they know what's going on, obviously, with their households as well.
There's a significant amount of frustration from people, particularly on social media pages, that they're not getting enough information, particularly from the Civil Defence page, Facebook page and Nelson Fire pages. What do you say to that? Because this was a problem with the Port Hills fires as well.
Look, what I would say to that is sorry about that level of frustration, but since the state of emergency was declared early this morning, a big priority is obviously making sure that information gets to them. I think the fact that we've got no injuries at this stage, or no one trapped in that area, is a good indication that people are getting the information that they need. But I would stress people just need to make sure that they are engaged either in social media or through yourselves to find out what's going on with the cordons. And obviously the weather could change at any instant, so what is asked of them might change in an instant too. So there's responsibility on both sides for the information to go out, but also for people to keep engaged in what is going on via social media or the media itself.
Speaking of that civil emergency, what additional support is that unlocked from central government?
Oh, look, when we declare a local state of emergency, the local CDM group takes charge. At the Emergency Operations Centre, we've got the likes of the Defence Force there, so they're plugged into all the planning and operations that's going on there. We've asked the team if they're happy with the resources that are here at the moment, and they're pretty happy with what they've got available to them at the moment. If things change, that could change, and that's why it's important to have the likes of the Defence Force and other agencies like MPI there, because there is a concern about animal welfare as well.
And clearly, I mean, there'll be a need for extra police resources. Those are the things that we've come to investigate and make sure that those resources will be here when needed.
As an organisation, there was a number of problems that came out of the report around the Port Hills fires.
Yeah.
Have you been considering that when looking at this fire and any, I guess, challenges that you want to overcome here?
Yeah, look, obviously we don't want that to happen again. but it's really important that there's collaboration between the likes of FENZ and the local authorities. And once civil defence emergency is declared through the CDM group themselves, when we went to the Emergency Operations Centre this afternoon, everything was calm and considered. They had all the facts that they needed to make sure that they had the resources and were making right decisions. Again, making sure that they can plan for other situations if conditions change, and we want to make sure that we're in touch with them, and we've got the likes of police and the Defence Force there, so that if they do need extra resources, that they can get access to them.
And having been through several of the briefings, the coordination is really good between the different agencies.
Minister O'Connor, there's a lot of concern around agriculture and wildlife. We've been out there, some farmers trying to muster sheep to keep them safe. What are you hearing from farmers?
Look, the report says they have had to euthanise 13 animals. NPI here on the ground, they've got the best veterinary advice. Some of these animals are on lifestyle properties. People have obviously been evacuated, they need to get back, but it's important they don't put themselves at risk to get back. So we're looking at animal welfare issues as quickly as we can. A couple of big farms around the perimeters, making sure that those farmers can look after their cattle. Some have, or could possibly have in the future shortage of water. These are all issues that have been looked at, on an hourly basis by the coordinated team.
How long is the state of emergency likely to remain in place?
That's how long is a piece of string. At the moment, they're trying to put the fire out as quickly as they can, and they've told us that the weather forecast today and tomorrow is good for them. But as I say, that could change. So it'll stay in place as long as the local CDM group needs the powers under a local state of emergency to make sure that they keep people and property safe.
The size of this fire, is it sort of under control at the moment?
It's probably a better question for Grant to come and answer.
Sorry, yeah. The size of the fire, is it under control at the moment?
We're currently working on containing it at the moment, so we're building containment lines around the perimeter of the fire. You have to understand it's a very large fire. We've got 16 air assets, helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft working on that, as well as heavy machinery, so it's going to take some time. And of course, weather dictates how we're going to be approaching that. And as you're probably all feeling now, the temperature's started to increase, the wind's up, and that's going to have to change our tactics and the way that my rural colleagues are managing the incident.
And there's a second fire now on Rabbit Island, is there? So does that complicate things?
So we've got enough resource currently to be able to address that. So we've got that set up as a separate fire. That's just started essentially out of the blue for us, but we had eyes on it immediately, and we've got resource down there managing it.
Earlier in the morning we were talking about the amount of properties that were affected, whether there were any losses actually. Do you have a definitive number at this point now?
In terms of property losses? Not for property losses. We're well aware, even, and you've probably seen during the flyovers, that there's been properties where the fires got very close to them, and there is some damage to properties, especially out sheds and garages and the rest of it, but so far we haven't seen any properties destroyed, but we can't confirm that until we're able to get right deep into some of these roads which we've had closed off since last night.
So the floating around comments this morning about several properties being lost, that's not actually the case? Well,
we can't confirm that at the moment, so I'd hate to say to you that we haven't lost anything where we haven't actually confirmed it, so we're still into that, but you have to understand that in the deeper parts of this fire it's still unsafe for us even to get our crews in. It's very hard for our helicopters even to get deep into the smoke, so that's the only way we can get any eyes on onto the fire.
Is there any word yet on the cause of the fire?
No, we've got a specialist fire investigator who is heading up here to start that investigation. They're due today, but the outcome to that will be determined, in days to come.
I think one of the things to emphasise is the fact there may be frustration out there, people looking for answers that can't be provided by Grant. The important thing is that human safety of the crews on the ground and the helicopters is paramount, and so there will be uncertainty and they won't be able to give clear answers to people who may have been evacuated. That's the reality of this very challenging situation.
And I think we just also have to remind people out there that this is the driest we've been in close to 20 years. The fire danger levels are very high to extreme. That's why we're seeing this fire behaviour. So we just have to be mindful of that when we're trying to look at how we're approaching this fire.
And in terms of the Nelson Tasman area and its history with fires, where would you say this compares on in
talking to my colleagues within our rural sector, they're saying that this is probably the equivalent at the moment to the fires which happened in the early 80s in the Maitai area.
So not seen in decades?
Not seen in decades, no.
Are you guys having a direct to the mayor?
Can I just ask Grant, a media organisation saying that the fire was started by a tractor?
No, I can't confirm that, and there's been no talk of that at the moment at all.
question
Right.
there?
Thank you.
Right, that'd be great. Just a couple of questions to Richard Keckthorne here. Richard, you've been, this is personal for you, but also you've been spending time with evacuees, and what's your message to many of the people that you know are affected at the moment and what they're going through today?
So people will be really anxious and stressed, and that's completely understandable. So just encourage them to think of their own needs and come forward and ask for help to meet those needs. The welfare centre up in Wakefield, that's there. Anyone who wants to come in and talk about it, great. If you want to find more information, phone through to the Council or Civil Defence to find out more information. So I'd say that's it. But as has already been said, keep yourself safe. Just look out for yourself first so that you're not putting yourself in danger.
What's the breakdown of this area and the people that are affected? Farmers, lifestyle blocks?
So there are some farmers in this area, and there are quite a few lifestyle blocks in the Redwood Valley area, quite a few lifestyle, Eves Valley, farming, Teapot Valley, that would be residential and farming, so there's quite a mix, in the same in Pigeon Valley.
And obviously still some uncertainty around properties, but you yourself have some personal connection to this area?
Yes, I do. So I come from Eves Valley, so that's where I grew up, and my brother and his family are there, and our Deputy Mayor is there, so we were just able to fly over that, so it was really interesting to see how well we had been protected by particularly FENZ, as has already been said, and I take my hat off to them for what they've done. And having been in with Civil Defence, Fire and Police, great coordination, there's a real good service. There can be some frustration of people not knowing what's going on, but there's a huge amount happening, and so what all the organisations are just wanting to deliver for people.
It must be a sigh of relief to have flown over that, seen your property, seen Tim's property.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like?
That feels great, but it was also interesting to see how many smoking spots there are still, so this fire is not out. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Richard. Appreciate it.
Thank you.